Hi investigators, Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy with this week's Private Investigator weekly news of what's happened in Australia in private investigations and government investigations. So over this next 30 minutes, this is for people who love taking statements and people who like writing reports. Yes, they're out there, and there's some 7,000 of them in Australia. So let's get right into it and have a look at what's happened this week in the world of investigations in Australia, down in Tasmania. JBS Meat Processing has been fined after an employee fell into a vat of tripe. Now, tripe is the stomach part of cattle that are being processed in the abattoir, and they're in a hot vat. It's 80 degrees, and this young man was clearing a blockage in the side of the vat as he was instructed to do, and he slipped and fell in. Now, his workers' compensation claim has been a separate matter to what happened, but JBS Meat Processing were fined $150,000 in the court for the injuries to that young man on the 23rd of November 4 years ago in Tasmania. So they were facing a $1.6 million fine over that. That was the maximum penalty they were facing. They only got $150,000. This young bloke, he's a pragmatic young man. I hope he recovers quickly. He's got scarring to quite a large part of his body. Now, where do you get these sort of things from? Where do you read about this? Well, this one was on the ABC website. Now, the ABC website's really good because it cross-references all its stuff down the bottom. So if you look down the bottom of what's on your screen at the moment, it talks about occupational health and safety. Now, of course, ABC being the ABC, we are the ABC, they're very old-fashioned and they don't know it's called workplace health and safety now. But they've basically put in a link for occupational health and safety, and it gives you links to similar matters that have happened around Australia at various times. So here's one that's only been recent. This young farmer, he had his arm torn off in a hay baler accident, and he drove himself 400 metres on a tractor to get assistance and help. And he was taken to hospital where they reattached the arm, and it's actually working. So he was disattached for quite a period of time. You can read all about it on the ABC website. So this was not a workers' compensation claim, but it was a hay baler accident on a farm. Now, this one, you can see it's in the same ABC website. A man was awarded $600,000 in damages for breaking his arm at Mount Keria on a footpath. Now, he sued the Wollongong Council for that. So he's there at work. He's taken some people with a disability there, and one of them has wandered off, and he's gone after them, and he's slipped, tripped and fell, and he's hurt his arm. So you can read all about that on the ABC website. What kind of damages do you get for that? Here they are. So you can see he was actually awarded $700,000. Over $250,000 of that was loss of wages, and then $197,500 for economic loss and pain and suffering. He was subtracted 15%. The judge subtracted 15% from that because there was a contribution by the injured person as he was in a hurry and he fell over. So he took a 15% discount on that, but that's what he was awarded. Now, as an investigator, when you investigate these things, unless it's in the press, you'll never find out about it. And that's really weird because they sign confidentiality agreements. So this one, they've hit the press in relation to his common law claim, and that's what he's got. So you can see that on the ABC website. Now, a lot of people come to me and say, oh, well, I've been an investigator for a long time and, in policing and in private investigation, and I want to be a government investigator, and I'm not going to do the workplace health and safety unit. Well, that's fine. I am a workplace health and safety instructor. I'm a workplace health and safety investigator, and I know workplace health and safety doesn't apply blanketly over every occupation in the world. So if you're going to be a government regulatory and enforcement investigator, your workplace health and safety is up another level than everybody else's, because you're going to be going out there enforcing regulatory compliance. And on the same ABC website, you can see where Gavin Piglia went mental at work one day and attacked two South Australian Environmental Protection Agency inspectors who were inspecting his work site. So he went and hit one of them, knocked him to the ground, and basically Gavin, who attacked him, was given 12 months suspended sentence. He was put on a $500 good behaviour bond, and basically if he ever did it again, he'd be in serious trouble. So he went to the magistrate, said, look, I'm reformed, it was brain snap, I'm sorry. He wrote a letter of apology. So he got off quite lightly for attacking an inspector. The inspector was only doing his job, protecting the environment from people that are spraying asbestos all around the place. So you can read about that one again on the ABC website. It's really a library of what we do in compliance enforcement and in workplace health and safety and in civil investigation in Australia. Now, really importantly, apart from that's happened, there's a job down in South Australia this week for an Environmental Protection Agency Authority investigator. And it's up to 2 years, and they're paying, I think, about $2,000 a week. So that's a job that you can go and get if you've got a certificate for in government investigation. That's something where you can go and look at that. So that's one of our positions vacant for this week. So ABC website, it's not just a news service, it's a virtual library of what we do in investigations. If you look for those linked articles and just have a browse of them when your footy team's losing or it's a rainy day, you've got nothing else to do. It's something that I do quite frequently. And there's also a job opportunity coming out. Now, that wasn't one of the two people that were injured by that man. One of them couldn't go back into that role. He had to have a new role. He was so upset about it. But what you've got to understand, if you're going to go and enforce regulatory compliance, you're going to piss off people, right? And they're not going to be nice people. These people, some of them, they're in construction. Some of them, we're not talking about people who are in cotton wool. We're talking about people in construction, heavy vehicles, stuff like that. They're knockabout type people and they can get pissed off. So you've got to have some pretty good de-escalation and people skills. You've got to have a very good understanding of workplace health and safety. If you ramped it up and you just said the wrong thing to these people when they're angry in those cases, it could not end well. So be very careful about that. But job opportunity down there in South Australia. They are talking about currently a Commonwealth Integrity Ombudsman. This is really getting some traction, but it's being held up because as they're designing it, they're working out how lenient they're going to be to politicians. The politicians are not going to let this through if they find out that, if they do something minor, they're going to go and spend 5 years in a correctional facility. So that's still being thrashed out with what's happening. So keep your eye on that. That's a National Integrity Commissioner. So in Victoria, we have a state one, IBAC. In New South Wales, we have a state one, ICAC. And here we're talking about a national one that's coming up. It was pointed out to me last week that I do say a lot. Now, yes, I do. This is entirely unscripted. I don't read it from anywhere, but it's really important you understand when I'm saying there's a logic behind it. Sports betting agency. Let's have a look at that one first. So the people that basically they in North Queensland this week can get. So I hope that settles the thing. Now, also, there's another one with a farmer in workers' compensation. This is one that's on our Australian Security Academy website. Now, people say there's no such thing as accidents, and you'll hear people say that, but sometimes there are just things that happen. There are no other explanation than they are an accident. This one happened because a man was wearing a hoodie with two plastic little knobs on the end of the strings on his hoodie. So it was a cold winter's morning in Western Queensland. The farmer was up early and he was wearing a hoodie to stay warm at that time of day, and he had to couple or uncouple a piece of equipment on the back of a tractor, and it was spinning around like you just saw. Now, what happened was the toggle on the hoodie went in one of those holes in the tractor that was spinning around, and it took 30 seconds, but it ripped both his arms off. Now, they tried to recreate that accident in a wind tunnel, but they couldn't do it. No matter how hard they tried, they could not get that toggle to go in that hole at any wind speed or stillness or whatever they could do. So all tractors that spin now, all the parts are covered by guards. Well, fortunately for that young man, 18 months later, he was after rehab, he was back at work and he had two prosthetic arms. So that was an accident that happened in Queensland. Oh boy, we're rattling through it today. Coming out this week, Ken Gamble at the APAC Fraud Conference put up LinkedIn.
We've got a witness that has seen Mr. Caulfield and Mr. Reynolds meeting in the Kirschberg Cafe near to the bank on George Street in Sydney on the 16th of September.
Now that's Darren J. Darren J is an instructor at the Police Academy in New South Wales. Now, if you're going to have instruction on any type of statement taking, Darren, apart from Pat Flynn at the Australian Security Academy, this is the man to go and have your statement taking studied with. He knows his stuff. He knows the difference between police statement taking, government statement taking, and civil investigation statement taking. Now, some people can only do police. Some people can only do civil. Darren is the full package, and he teaches interviewing skills, and he's advertising in that APAC Fraud Conference where you just saw him there just briefly, his system for statement taking, interviewing people, that sort of thing. It's a complete interviewing system. Darren, I've done his course in statement taking, absolutely fantastic. I've watched Darren teach. He's a man that knows his stuff. He's flexible. He's adaptable to any industry, and he just oozes knowledge of how to go about it. And he's very quiet, very methodical, just like you saw just there. He does a great job. Darren J, Google him. You might be able to get into that program if you have a look at it. So Darren's been doing that. Ken Gamble put that up on the APEC Fraud program on LinkedIn. Don't forget, people down in Investigation Industry Association sounds like a whole bunch of old people doing old people stuff. Down in Melbourne at the AISP, there's Steve Scarhill talking at the AISP conference, and they have got their election for their membership, for their nominations for their people down there to be in charge of the AISP next year. Get in touch with Simon Armstrong. When you watch the replay of this program, you just stop it at this point. You see Simon's contact details there. Get in touch with him. Just stop it and you'll be able to write them down and send him an email about who you want to represent you at the AISP in Victoria next year. Now, I got a really great question this week. The person said to me, look, I have skills in human resources and in industrial relations, and I'm a licensed private investigator, and I investigate workplace health and safety accidents in a whole range of industries throughout New South Wales, and I've done it for quite some time. And look, honestly, I think I can grow a bigger business and just do HR investigations, which are code of conduct, bullying, harassment, racial discrimination, inappropriate conduct, inappropriate use of power, inappropriate application of process, policy and procedure. Now, if you have training in that and qualifications in that, I absolutely implore you, take it to the next level. Do not be afraid to put yourself out there, hang a shingle out and say, look, I am an HR investigator. I can do these types of investigations for you. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to network, you've got to promote yourself, and you've got to grow your business from the start. But the way to do that is very simple. Join an industry association. Get on this program on Friday. Be interviewed by Mike Evans as an authority in your area. You might be a fire investigator. That doesn't matter. You might be an HR investigator. You can grow a business based on your speciality. So you use your experience from the past and your other qualifications to grow and build. That's how we get improvement in services. That's how we get better systems. So you don't have to do workers' compensation investigations or CTP liability investigations for the rest of your life if you know how to do bullying harassment investigations and you have those skills. It's simply a matter of building slowly, and you grow it over the time. And look, 5 years later, you look around and you'll be an overnight success. So don't be afraid to do it. You have those qualifications, you have those skills, put yourself out there, back yourself. There are people out there that have done that for years. They're looking at retirement. When I started teaching in this 20 years ago, the population of Australia, I think, was something like 19, 20 million. Now it's 25 million. I've got a whole 5 million potential added potential customers now, just because I've been around for 20 years. So look, it grows, the economy and the opportunities grow. Don't be afraid to grow your investigation business in your speciality. That's really, really important. And there are opportunities out there everywhere. We saw what was on the ABC today. That's just some that you can look at and see.
Just gotta let it go. I often sit and wish that I could just change my past. To think about you, Dad, there's so much shit that I could ask. Like, why am I still haunted by the day that you left?
So what are the positions vacant this week? Well, down in Tasmania, they're looking for a senior investigation officer and a review person at the Ombudsman. Now, if you go to the Australian Security Academy Facebook page where I put up all the jobs, here it is, you'll see that job. So look, get on Facebook, join Australian Private Investigator Corporate and Government Investigation Jobs and have a look at those jobs that are there. The one down in Tasmania, here it is, and you'll go down to the bottom. They're very casual down there. It says, get in touch with Tom, and it gives you Tom's email address and phone number, and you can give him a call and talk to him about the job. But Tom needs an investigator and a review officer, a lady or a gentleman who can help him out doing what he does at the Ombudsman. And they are very busy people at the Ombudsman in Tasmania. I was fortunate enough to do a couple of investigations there. If you want to get undercover and go covert, this is the job of the year. Here we go. The Australian Federal Police are looking for covert analysis and assurance monitors. So again, they want people with a law enforcement background, but if you are suitably qualified people who are interested in an appointment at the AFP, they will look at, you know, from a non-law enforcement background. So if you have really good experience in undercover work and surveillance, they'll look at you. Now, the secret to the AFP is don't overthink it. AFP want a variety and a diverse inclusion of people. And I've met people that worked at the AFP 25 years ago, and in the recent last 6 months, they're back there working again. Now, that would have been unthinkable once. You'd never be able to leave the AFP and go back. But it's more flexible today. They have more understanding of diversity and inclusion and using skills now. It's not all us and them anymore. So AIFP, that is an absolutely brilliant opportunity if you want to get into some covert work and you don't have any police training. So jump on my Australian Security Academy Facebook page where those jobs are, and you'll see that job there. Now, private investigators, here's a great opportunity with Brookside. Brookside are looking for people in Sydney, Newcastle, Canberra, and regional New South Wales. They want factual investigators. Everybody wants factual investigators. Now, the reason they want factual investigators is they've got factual investigation work. I have spoken this week to 4 of the biggest employers in Australia in relation to civil investigations and licensed private investigators, and every single one of them said we're after factual investigators. So if you can take statements, if you can write reports, if you can conduct records of interview, if you can gather and collect evidence, and if you can hold your own and give evidence, there's big opportunities all around Australia. Just because I don't put a job up here doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I only put up 30% of the jobs that are available. These are just some of interest, just to mix it up each week. It's been a year now this week since Lisa Cass, there she is, there's Lisa making a presentation at the AILA conference in Hobart. And I was fortunate enough to be there with Lisa and present in the same program. It's 1 year down the track since we did that. So congratulations, Lisa. That was a really big week we had down in Hobart. Jim Higgins, yourself and I really enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll be in Sydney next week, next year, sorry, at the national conference there. So looking forward to that, should it go ahead. Now, what else has been happening this week? It's been quite busy. Done that. Down in Victoria, So I've done that.
So let's stay together.
It was sad news this week, Sean Connery passing away at the age of 90. That's not a bad innings. Well done, Sean. Looking resplendent in his bow tie, came to everybody's attention as James Bond 007 in Dr. No. Still worth a watch, that movie, if you ever get the opportunity to do it. But rest in peace, Sean Connery. You made a lot of people really happy with your work over the years, and it's really well done. I love the way you rock that bow tie, mate, yeah. You look really good. He's Indiana Jones in his bow tie as a professor before he goes out running around the world doing what he does. So bow tie is a very important thing to have, I think. Now, next week, I'm going to be coming to you from Tasmania. We're going down there and we're going to be doing a bush and rural surveillance program. When we do bush and rural surveillance programs in Tasmania, we go into the most remote areas. Here's a shot of when we're in absolutely remote area. Now, Alex is here. He's doing a river crossing. Now, he's got to cross a river that's on it's got a telegraph pole as a bridge. Now, this telegraph pole has another telegraph pole laying across it to stop it washing away. It did wash away about 6 months after this in a flood, so it's not there anymore. He's not on the telephone. He's filming himself because the river is just pure melted snow. It's freezing. If Alex fell into that river, he would last about 3 minutes, and then hypothermia would set in, and falling in there is not a good option. So the river's about 2.5 meters wide. It's probably a 3 meter long telegraph pole, and he's got to cross that carefully before he goes in. So that's in Tasmania some 4 years ago when we did that one there. Whoops. So we try and have an activity that they're going to remember. Now, that was a particularly scary one because there was no workplace health and safety instruction. They were on a bush and rural program. They had to work it out for themselves. Now, next week, when we're down in Tasmania, this is what they've got to do next week. They have to go down this wall on these rusty iron ladders. So they've got to go down that wall, and if they actually make it to the bottom and survive, right, when they get to the bottom, if you've ever seen the Indiana Jones movie and where he goes into the temple and he picks himself up and he looks like that, he's looking at something he's got a phobia about, and it's quite a few of them. So any of you remember the movie, you'll remember that. But when these guys and ladies in Tasmania next week get to the bottom of this, I have never seen in my life such a slippery greeting that anyone, it's on the same level that Indiana Jones got in that movie. So when I come back to you this time next week, I'm going to show you the people as when they get down there, what they actually are confronted by. Now, it's pretty scary and it's pretty slippery and they're pretty big. So it's something to look forward to. What they learn on these bush and rural programs is always something different. They've got to learn how to deal with that thing that's different in an area they're not familiar with, and they've got to be able to get in and get out. Now, again, there's no communication there. So interesting thing to follow next week. Anyway, people, look, it's been a really busy week. Don't forget to get in touch with the AISP. Stop the video at that point and get in touch with them. If you can Google Darren J and his statement taking stuff, it is industry best practice apart from what Pat Flynn does at the Australian Security Academy. So if you're into statement taking, you want a factual investigation job, if you can do one of Darren's courses, you will not go wrong and your statements will be perfect. They come with practice over time. He's the first person to admit it. But if you're looking for someone to do that, get in touch with Darren. I'm looking forward to going down to Tasmania. That's what they're like down there. We're going to be doing bush and rural training down there. We've had several people graduate this week. Lots of people with a Certificate 3 in Investigative Services. So there was 4 of them. Each one of them is now working at a national investigation agency. So 2 different ones. So 2 people from each one. They got their qualification. They've been employed. So that's really great news. really satisfying. We've got some lovely feedback from people who have completed our Certificate 4 in Government Investigation and Security Risk Analysis, how they've got work out of that. You get work from having qualifications. You get work from applying what you learnt. You don't get work from dreaming about it. It's hard work to study for that and get it, but it really is important. I'm going to be on bush and rural surveillance next week. So if I'm going to be on bush and rural surveillance, I've got to go out with my Koreans who talk about units and surveillance, and this is what Koreans are like.
그림자를 잡았습니다. 작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
All units return to base. Great having you people. Don't forget, Tuesdays we do No Risk with Jason Fullerton. I'll be, before I go, charging up the bush next week, speaking to Jason from Tassie. And thanks for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you all again next week. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. So next week I'll have my camo bow tie on. It's been affected by the green screen. You won't be able to see it. But I'll have it on in the bush next week. See you then. Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy.